Today we're going to talk about the new Admech Codex and go through a few points, because I think this is a fundamental change in the way Admech plays and it's not exactly clear. Quite frankly, it's a bit confusing. We're going to start, it might go over 2 videos or maybe more this, by the way, right? But we're going to start with Forge Worlds and the Canticles of the Ominissiah. Now, before we get started, let's look at the data sheets briefly. Some of these data sheets have abilities, Doctrine Imperatives, right? Others have Canticles of the Ominissiah, like the Catapron Breaches, but they very rarely have both. They have one or the other, right? I'm not sure why. It might split up into it might be a case of Cult Mechanicus versus Adeptus or whatever, but yeah, like for instance, right, Scutari Rangers, they get Doctrine Imperatives, they don't get Canticles of the Ominissiah. So when you go to the beginning here, where you actually get to choose these things, you've got Doctrine Imperatives on one side, that's the dark one, then you've got Canticles here. 2 very different things. They're not the same. Now, you would think you could apply both to all armies, but I don't think you can. I think the Canticles of the Ominissiah only apply to models with the Canticle of the Ominissiah ability, and the Imperatives only apply to units with the Imperative ability, because they nearly always have one or the other. And if you look through the list, it's Doctrine, 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 Doctrine. They don't usually get both. So straight away, I think we've got a difference between the last codex and this one, right? Where we've got the abilities are separated. You've got Doctrines and Canticles of the Ominissiah. They're not the same, and we have to distinguish between the 2. So Palm Throw, for example, which is a cover, light cover. If we apply that to any unit that could get Canticles of the Ominissiah, then basically, if we go from the beginning, Bellaris Claw, he could get it. The Tech Priest could get it. In fact, most of the HQs could get it. Let's move out the HQ. Rangers would not get it. Vanguard would not get it. Cataphrons would get it. Electro Priests would get it. Rust Stalkers wouldn't get it, neither would Infiltrators. The Cybernetic Data Spiff, he would get it. Cerberus, they wouldn't get it. Sky Stalkers, they wouldn't get it. The Robots, they would get it. Dragoons wouldn't. Scorpius Disintegrators wouldn't. Right, Dunecrawler wouldn't, and so on, right? So this is what I think they split it, right? And I think it's dead easy for us to just assume old rules still apply, and that's the danger here. This is where we always make the mistake when they upgrade the rules. We apply old rules to new books, and that's not always true. I usually guess right when it comes to GW, and I think in this particular case, the Doctrine Imperatives and the Canticles should be seen as 2 very different things and only applying to the units that have that ability. So in the case of Bellaris Claw, here's Canticles of the Ominissiah, so he would get the Canticles, not the Doctrine Imperatives. Now, you do have to have a battle-forged army to get both. Your army does have to be made entirely of Adeptus Mechanicus units for you to get either one of them, but then it must be, you know, a Canticle of the Ominissiah or a Doctrine Imperative ability before you can apply it. Now, knowing that, we go back to the Mars one, which now makes more sense. Mars gets the Dogma Masters of the Forge. Scutari units with this Dogma gain Canticles of the Ominissiah. So now it's just given every Scutari unit, right, the Canticles of the Ominissiah. Now, before people think, yeah, we get 2, We don't, right? Because we only get 6 to start off with. You can't randomly roll anymore. And over a 5-turn game, you'd need 10, right, before you'd run out. Otherwise, you get, for instance, you get 6 now, right? If you can take 2 a turn, by turn 3 you'd run out of Canticles that you're allowed to use. So it doesn't make any sense to have 2. So we're getting 1 now as Mars, not 2. The difference is they can apply those Canticles to all Scutari units. That's the way I'm interpreting it, right? And the Dogma one, the Doctrine Imperatives, should I say, that applies in a similar kind of way. It applies to anything with Doctrine Imperatives and only them. Everybody else, for instance, you can improve the weapon skill, right? It says at the cost of your ballistic skill. Now that would only apply to units with that. So yeah, because they are very different. They are very different. So here we've got Dogma, Mass of the Forge. We give all Scutari units the Canticles of the Omnissiah. So suddenly, Rangers, who previously only had Doctrine Imperatives, now get Canticles of the Omnissiah as well as Doctrine Imperatives. So they can use both, which is quite a powerful thing. They could use the Imperatives that give them a +1 on the ballistic skill at the cost of -1 on the weapon skill, and vice versa for the weapon skill and ballistic skill. They could increase their saves by +2, but by reducing their movement rate by 3. And improve their move characteristics but reduce their save by 1. So they can take that and then they can get the benefits of light cover as well, right, with Palm Shroud, or use any one of the other things like Benediction of the Omnissiah, reroll 1 hit roll, reroll 1 wound roll, reroll 1 damage roll, that kind of thing. So it is quite powerful when you're using combination like that. And I think it's important we distinguish this from the 8th edition codexes, because this is a vastly different way of working. And there's more to this than just that particular section there. This particular section here, for example, talked about, you know, Canticles as an ability and not Doctrine Imperatives as an ability. But there are all kinds of abilities linked to warlord traits and things, which if I can find them quickly, says we'll be able to find you an example. Actually, it's not there, it's back a bit in it. But the abilities, warlord abilities, they allow you to choose a unit, and then you can change the Canticle of the Omnissiah for that one unit and the warlord. And there's quite a few of these. I think there's a couple of relics as well that do something similar. Here we go, right? Now basically the way these work, if you've got a warlord ability, you want a warlord to say use the Palm Shroud, he can use it and then he can give that to another unit. Even if you've already used that Canticle, you could then reuse it again for the warlord and that one unit. So you can have multiple Canticles in operation at any one time based on these abilities. So you've got the ability to have Doctrine Imperatives active separately from Canticles, and your ability to have a warlord or somebody with certain abilities grant a different Canticle to a specific unit as you want to play. Now explaining this alone has taken 9 minutes, which is why I'm not completely sold on this book, because it shouldn't be, you know, that long. Now just going through, we've got between pages 60 and 63 we've got multiple strategies for deep striking, right? We could these start on the battlefield. We've got Circuitous Assassins, which applies to Scutarian units, that's Rust Stalkers and Infiltrators. And then we've got Booster Thrust, which applies to, is it Pteraxi, whatever that is. Pteraxi, I can't even pronounce that. It's the new units, right? So yeah, shooting strategies, we've got Enriched Rounds. That's for radium weapons, right? Pretty good. We've got Galvanic Volley, right, which is Scutari Rangers. Now, something to be noted here: Scutari Rangers and Vanguard are pretty much exactly the same now. They've just got different units, and one of them gets radium carbines, the other one gets galvanic rifles. But you can take the same stuff on both of them. You can get elimination volleys for the Cataphrone servitors. You get arc grenades, right, which are used on anything with the mech arc grenades keyword. I'm not entirely sure who carries them, but it's written in the books, you know, down here, which I think would be, is it Rangers? No, it's not Rangers. But anyhow, the specific units have these grenades, and they're listed in their keywords, I think it is. So you've got to look it up. It's not an easy thing. Again, it slows everything down. It's another reason why I am not sold on this codex, because quite frankly, it is a bit of a pain having to look up keywords for abilities, because it's basically, I mean, you're looking at here, right? You've got a stratagem, and you've got to look up the keyword to find out if you can throw a grenade. Surely it should have been in with the weapons. You know, it says it has grenades. It doesn't make much sense. It is a bit of arse about face thing. Then you've got info slave skull, another thing that benefits shooting. In melee, you've got zealous congregation for electro priests. You've got assassins constructs for Skitarian ruststalkers and infiltrators. You've got electromancer's wrath for electro priests. Crushing weight for iron striders and castellan robots. Electro shock for the cult mech core units and the mech character and mechanicus characters. Now the core units, again, these are listed as keywords, right? Serbia's raiders, they're a core unit, as are the sulfur hounds. Datasmith is not a core unit. Rust stalkers are a core unit. Electro priests are a core unit. Breachers are not a core unit, but they're listed as bikes now. Rangers are a core unit. So again, it's a bit messy. It is a bit messy, because by saying only core units, you've got to learn which ones are core units, which ones have arc grenades, which ones are Doctrine Imperative, which ones are Canticles of the Ominissiah. It's a lot to take in and remember on a unit by unit basis. It's error prone and it's going to create problems. Personally, I think this is possibly the worst codex I've seen from Games Workshop. Certainly it seems to be something that they were licking magic mushrooms or something, or maybe I'm just misunderstanding it completely. But given the fact I've been playing GW games for decades, if I'm misunderstanding it, what chance do newbies get to have? Anyhow, then we get to Holy Orders, which is a little bit straightforward. The Holy Orders themselves are an extra layer of complexity, which you can optionally take on top of everything else. So again, are they a good thing or a bad thing? I'll let you work that one out. You've got a number of ones, like the Janitors, right? These are the blue stratagems. When you look in the book, the blue ones, right? You can basically use one of them at a cost of 1 CP less, which means one of them will be free once per battle, right? Or if it's a 2.9, it'll cost you 1 point once per battle. So depending on which order you join, you might get to cast one, you know, stratagem for free. But it has to match the colour. For instance, right, the Holy Order's Janitors are blue ones. So you could do the Zealous Congregation, right, for 1 point. Doom Striders, right, that's an advanced one. That would be free. Assassin's Constructs, you get 1 additional attack, that would be free. Wrath of the Electromancer, that would be free. Things like that. Anyhow, this is machine support. Add 1 to the strength characteristic. Elimination volley. Basically, that's the old one. It says when Catarans in your army set to shoot until the next phase. Each time a model in the unit makes an attack, an unmodified roll of 6 automatically wounds. So yeah, and they all have a similar thing, but the Janitors, they mainly affect Cataphrone servitors. They're either automatically wounding on a 6, or they're ignoring wounds on a 6. Lord of the Logi says they're the green stratagems, and now they have an AP minus, well, initial AP of -1 or -2 becomes 0. So if anybody's shooting at you with an AP -1 or -2 weapon, it cancels it out. It goes to 0. The advanced rule, and I should explain this actually because I've skipped that bit. You could say at the beginning of one of your command phases that you're switching from initial to advanced. And then in the beginning of your next turn, the advanced rule becomes in effect rather than the initial one, so you get one or the other. But the initial one is the AP -1, -2 rule I explained, and the advanced one here is Canticles negate cover when shooting. So you can have one or the other. The advanced one takes a turn to implement. It's the same with Magni. These are the brown stratagems. You get initial +2 and advanced rolls for a selected unit. Well, initial things for advanced moves. And then you've got the advanced power, which is modified hit rolls of 6 from a core unit, causes a +1 hit. Well, it causes +1 hit. So if you roll a 6, you get 2 hits instead of 1. Right? And artisans, which a lot of people talk about, I actually think Magni might be one of the better ones. Right? But the artisans, they say that's the grey stratagems. So it's the again, it's adding a layer of complexity that just baffles the mind. So it's Catapron says can charge and shoot even if it fell back, and if you initialize the advanced one, the core unit can add 1 to the strength of an attack. Now, usually these are very specific, right? That'll only apply to core units, and the initial one will only apply to Cataphron. Cataphrons are featured heavily throughout the Holy Orders, as are core units. So it'll be one or the other, not both. Keeping track of all this during the game is going to be an absolute nightmare. But anyhow, if you want to make a unit into a Holy Order, you can select one. Right, one unit can be in it. And if you want to be a Genitors, it's going to cost you an extra 25 points. 35 for Logi, 30 for Magni, and 25 for Artisan. I'm not entirely sure if it's going to be worth it, because are you even going to remember this during the game? Because there's quite a lot to take in. Now you get down to Warlord traits. You've got Tech Priest Warlord traits. That's for normal Tech Priest characters, and they've renamed things. Like even Engine Seers have the word Tech Priest before them now, so there's no confusing an Engine Seer with anything else. It is still a Tech Priest, it's just a low ranking one. Some of the newer ones, I can't remember the name of them offhand, says I think it goes Techno-Archaeologist, right? They're allowed to take, if I remember rightly, an Engine Seer without it taking up a slot. So you could, for every Techno-Archaeologist you can have an Engine Seer, right, taken in your thing. It still costs you points, but it doesn't take up any, it's another HQ choice basically. So it's a good way of taking extra HQs without filling up an HQ spot. Why would you do that? Well, they changed the laser pistol to a Mechanicus pistol on the Engine Seer. It's no longer pathetic, it's a pistol 2 with a 12-inch range, and it has strength 4, AP -2, 1 damage. So it's quite a respectable weapon now. But the Engine Seer has gone up by about 20 points, from 35 to 55 because of that. But yeah, but anyhow, they've got quite a few wounds on them as well, and 2 attacks. But the Tech Priest Warlord traits, I made a list here. Oops, sorry, pardon me then. Right, if we go to these, you got the Bionics, that's a +4 invulnerable, and you take -1 damage down to a minimum of 1. These are the ones that I think are worth taking. You got is a Necromechanic, heals 3 wounds on repair rolls. Now, depending whether you want to be attacking or defending, you might go one or the other. If you've got a Tech Priest for defense and you want to give him a Warlord trait, healing 3 wounds instead of doing a roll would be a good one. You've got a cartogrammist or grammatist, whatever that is. So that means you can deep strike your HQ unit. Unfortunately, you can only have one of these abilities. So if you could deep strike him with a +3 repair rolls or a +4 vulnerable, that would be great. But you can't, because if you pick that, you can't have the others. So I'm struggling to see why you'd take that one. Right? I mean, there are reasons, I suppose, re-rolling ones and stuff, but I don't think that's enough of a reason. Now you've got Skitarii ones. You've got archive engagements. Skitarii always fight first. Remember, in the original Skitarii books, there was 2 books. There was Admech Skitarii and Admech Mechanicus, and there was no HQs in the Skitarii book, right? Where there was in the Mechanicus. So this particular bit, I think, dates back to the establishment of the Admech army, where Admech, well, Mechanicus and Skitarii had 2 separate books they used together, right? So they've given warlord traits to Skitarii now. We've got our first Skitarii HQ unit as well in the I can't remember the name of the guy. What's the name? Skitarii Marshal. So now it starts becoming a thing. Now, they also have a fire point telemetry cache, which is basically in light cover +1 save if actually in terrain. And then you've got either the Ominissiah, your reroll charge and advanced rolls, none of which I consider to be that brilliant. But then we get down to relics, right? Now, relics. This is interesting, this. The relics, the skull of the elder Nicola causes mortal wounds to vehicles. I quite like that. Exemplar's Eternity, Skitarii Marshals only, Skitarii core units within 6 inches, reroll hit rolls and wound rolls of 1. Right, so basically you pick a unit, right, and then that gets some abilities. You know, it's got to be within 6 inches of the marshal. Then you got a Tempor Copa, whatever that. Enemy unit fights last. So if you know you're in combat with a really strong unit, you could use this and say that unit there is going to fight last. Might be a knight, you know. I mean, you get a few cracks at the knight before it annihilates your men. And then you've got the Cage of Verdimus, where electric shock units suffer, units that electric shocked suffer -1 to hit in melee. So you give everybody a -1, so that's not bad. Doctrine Imperatives, I think I've covered them. Engine Sears, yeah, I've covered them. Right, anyway, the book is a bit hit and miss, to be honest. It's going to take a lot to get your head around it and get it in the right order. I do think the way to look at this is you get some units can take Canticles, some units have Doctrine Imperatives, and then specific Forge World rules change that in slightly different ways. And also certain abilities allow you to change Canticles on a unit by unit basis as well. So you need to look at it from that perspective now, I think. Now I was going to go into detail and explain to you combinations and things like that, but quite frankly there's so much to think about in just that little bit there. I think I'll leave that for another video. However, whilst there's a lot that's the same in this, there's an awful lot that's changed, and the new units, which I'll just briefly talk about, seem to link in more with stratagems than actually being useful in their own right. If I remember rightly, the Patarax units, they now join infiltrators and being able to deep strike. Well, they don't call it deep strike, but they basically can be moved to the anywhere on the board within 9 inches of an edge of the table. So, you know, from turn 1 basically. So in turn 1 you'd say, right, they're coming off the board and they're going to move somewhere else. Then on turn 2 they appear on the board somewhere else. So they join the infiltrators and be able to do that. Plus there's a few stratagems that support that. Right, that support them doing that. Other units, I think it's I think Belarus Claw has it. Let's have a look. Is it this? Mass machine. Okay. Anyhow, there's other units have the ability to stop you from teleporting or deep striking 12 inches of them. I'm not sure what the rule is, but I've seen it. It's in here somewhere. So you can use that to protect yourself from deep striking units. Master of machines. Yeah. So yeah, lots of changes here. Lots of confusion added. Even working out the points has become a little harder than it used to be. They've taken away the knights as well. I'm not seeing any knights in here. So let's just see how that goes. There's also some interesting combinations which I'll touch upon in more detail in a future book, like tasers, for instance, right? Not to confuse you further, but this is a freebie added to the end of this video, which I'll cover again in another one. If we go to stratagems, which are way back here, and we try to find the taser one, no, not that, if I can find it, not straight, right, here it goes, chain taser protocols. Use this stratagem in the fight phase when adapts Mechanicus unit from your army is selected to fight. Till the end of that phase, each time the unit is the model in the unit makes an attack with a taser weapon, an unmodified roll of 5 scores 2 hits. It doesn't say 5 plus, it says 5. Right? It's not a mistake. Now if we go to taser weapons, go to infiltrators for example, right? This is what I mean by confusing, right? I worked this out, but it is confusing. There's no way it can be described as clear. But if we go to infiltrators, right, and we look at the description for taser guard, each time an attack is made with this weapon, an unmodified roll of 6, it says scores 2 additional hits. That means not 5, it's 6. So if you roll a 6, you get 2 additional hits, not 5. With that stratagem there, the tasers, the chain taser protocols, you get 2 hits on a 5 as well. You see? Now, it could have just said on a 6 you get 1 additional hit, on a 5 you get another additional hit, and people would have added together and got the different amounts, and it would have increased the power of it, you might say. Instead, they basically added the taser roll to the 5 roll as well as the 6 roll in such a way where you're left scratching your head, which is basically what this book is about, head scratching. It's not clear at all, and there are lots of ways people can misinterpret the rules. I don't know what GW were thinking, to be honest. It's not a good codex. I mean, don't get me wrong, the Admech rules are alright, they'll do alright, but the layout of it and everything else is not good. It's really badly designed, and I don't know. I'm going to have to spend a great deal of time getting my head around the new system. This is because, quite frankly, it's so alien from the other system, and because you've got to remember all these key words like core unit, Doctrine Imperatives and stuff like that, it's going to be easy to make mistakes. You've got to know, for example, what is a Scutari unit, what is a core unit, you know, and you've got to know it instantly as you're playing the game, and you've got to know which rules apply, like whether a Canticles the Emperor would apply to Rangers or not, and whether Doctrine Imperative would apply to Bellaris Claw or not, or Call or not. And this is why I think it's just confusing. During the game you need to be thinking about strategies, not keywords. Anyway, I'll do some more videos on this, and we'll get down to the nitty gritty and some of the combinations and things, because there are a few combinations in here. Although I see people on in Facebook forum groups listing combinations, and they're forgetting little things like, if I'll just pick one out for you really quickly, they're saying they're going, this isn't good because it's only a low strength weapon. what's the chances of you ever, you know, getting a 6, blah blah blah, and all that kind of nonsense. And my answer to that is radium carbine is an assault-free weapon. 5 men will hit 15 times, or potentially 15 times. It means you're probably going to get at least 1 6. That's my answer. Right? It doesn't have to be brilliant. With the Mars stratagem, you know, I can't remember what they call it now, any 6 is a mortal wound. So more shots is better. And when people say, oh, they've got 2+, it's not going to cause any damage because they'll easily save. The way to beat good saves is more shots. Doesn't have to be good shots. You can take out Terminators faster with low grade weapons than you can with a laser cannon. Because that low grade save, you make him roll that low grade save, and often enough he will get a 1 eventually. Right, anyway, see you in the next one. There is a confusing book, but I'm sure once we get into it we'll figure it all out. In the meantime, right, take the book as it says literally and don't assume anything's a mistake. Because quite frankly, right, the way they've laid it out, you can see that they're assuming you're going to take that rule, add that rule to the top. It's not like they should have meant a 6 here and a 5 there. They didn't make that mistake. Right, this is written literally, and you should take this book literally. What it says is what it means. See you in the next one.